Good evening. Thank you for coming. After I changed my date, I made a mistake initially, but you were kind enough to forgive me and to come today. Next week, we are staying on Wednesday. Most of our adult ed classes this year will be on Wednesdays for different reasons, but the main one is that we will have a police security here. So Wednesday we already have it in the building for religious school, and we all feel a little bit safer when the police is here. I hope you're not very cold. I am. We're going to talk today about the art of difficult conversations. We have many Jewish texts about Jewish conversations, about the whole idea of rebuke, as we are going to explore shortly. But I want to start with a biblical reference. Before we read the first text that I have here, I need to give you the background. So the most famous king in the history of the Jewish people was King David, a very complex person. On one occasion, when he was in his palace in the city of David, he looked out of the window or the roof and saw a beautiful woman bathing. Her name was Bathsheba. And since he was the king, he thought he could get everything he wants. Now, at that time, there was no problem for a man, especially a powerful man, to be married to more than one wife. Many of our patriarchs had more than one wife. It was all a matter of how many you can afford. I'm not kidding. That was really, it was even a status. The number of wives you have, it means that you do better financially. However, if the woman you fancy is married, well, that's you cannot do because you're stealing from another man. Okay, that was the whole concept at the time. So David fancied Bathsheba. However, she was married to Uriah, who was a commander in his army. An important person and an extremely loyal person to David. Well, his attraction to her was hard to control, and he sent his people to bring her to his palace, and they spent some time together, and as it happens in many good stories, she got pregnant. What to do? So David had a great idea. It's all about, of course, the cover-up, right? Not the sin or the crime, it's the cover-up. That's almost always the case. So David had this brilliant idea. He summoned Uriah, Bathsheba's husband from the front, from the war, and brought him to the house and fed him and just wanted to thank him for his service to the country, gave him a lot of wine. And then he said, go and spend the night in your house with your wife. But Uriah was so loyal. And he said, there is no way in the world that my soldiers are sleeping on the ground, are being killed, and I'm going to spend the night on a comfortable mattress with my wife? No way. I will sleep outside, just like my soldiers. So David's first plan failed. He couldn't argue that Uriah was the father of the new baby. Plan number 2 was much more problematic. Before Uriah left, he wrote a letter to Yoav, who was the head of the army. And it was a secret letter, sealed letter, that instructed Yoav, the chief of staff of the army, to send Uriah to the front line, to the most dangerous place in which he had extremely good chances to get killed. and he got killed. So now there is no problem. David can legally have Bathsheba, and okay, they have a child. Even if it arrives a little bit early, no big deal, right? So maybe people didn't know, but who knew? God. Now, God back then had prophets. One of the roles of the prophets was a combination of investigating, a journalist. That man was Nathan. So he was supposed to go to the king and had this difficult conversation. God knows what you did. But it's not easy. He's the king. And even though we like him, he was not the most compassionate person when it came to his own issues. So let's read the way that Nathan the prophet chose to have this difficult conversation with David. Oh, I have to read because the mic goes to the stream. So, the Lord sent Nathan to David. He came to him and said, "There were two men in the same city, one rich and one poor. The rich man had very large flocks and herds, but the poor man had only one little ewe lamb that he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up together with him and his children. And it grew up with him and his children. It used to eat from his morsel and drink from his cup and lie in his bosom. It was like a daughter to him." Now, don't think it's weird. Many of you do it with your dogs and cats, okay? But back then, they didn't have dogs and cats because they couldn't just afford an animal that didn't give you anything in return, that you just spend tons of money to feed and to take to the vet, etc. So it was not unusual for people to have their favorite lamb and just, raise them probably the way we treat our pets today. So that was this lamb of the poor man. That's all he had. One day, a traveler came to the rich man. He was loath to take anything from his own flocks or herds to prepare for the guest, so he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the guests who had come to him. Okay, so the guest came and he just didn't feel like using his own animals. So he went to the poor Nebuch guy and took his one lamb. Quite cruel, right? David flew into a rage against the man and said to Nathan, "As the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He shall pay for the lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and showed no pity." And Nathan said to David, "You are the man." It's a beautiful story from the second book of Samuel. Because you have to get used to the fact that the Bible, I don't believe there is even one character in the entire Bible who didn't do something really bad. No, that's the strength of the Bible. Okay? The Bible tells stories about good stories, bad stories, because the Bible describes people like us, who have bad sides and good sides. And so this is the story, the biblical story. And let's look at the approach of the prophet Nathan. So first of all, why didn't he confront David directly? He's the prophet.
Because of David's temperament.
Probably wanted to keep his head attached to his body. Okay, so even though he's a man, the prophet is a man of God, that's still, king is a king. And we know that there are some leaders who think that they can do anything they want. So what was his approach? What do you think? If he had come to David and said, I know what you did, and you violated these laws, at least he broke 2 of the 10 commandments, right? What would David had listened to him, even if he wouldn't kill him? So what was his approach? Sorry? Let David come to him. Let David, right, find another way. Sometimes it's good to be indirect, especially when we want to start a conversation that you don't want it to end immediately after the first line. Because I can tell you that if somebody starts a conversation with me by accusing me of something, I stop listening. Even though I don't have the authority to chop their head off, but I just don't listen. I become defensive. I immediately come up with excuses or even ways to blame them. Does it sound familiar?
It's like I wrote an email to one of the companies out there that were having transportation issues and deliveries, and I wrote it, and I let it sit there. I said, I can't send this, and I rewrote it, and I was the totally opposite nice about it. And I got 3 emails within like an hour from them. Like I've never gotten a response saying, you know what, we're at the highest level, we're looking into this, and since then, my problems have been fixed. So, you know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm not. That's Nathan. Yeah, no, but start indirectly. Start with a compelling story. Engage. I know that most of us cannot come with these great parables whenever we have to yell at our kids to clean the room, but sometimes it's smarter to be indirect, to have a conversation, and if we're good enough, to let them find the answer themselves. We'll have more practical techniques here later on. Any comments about this story? This is just a nice thing, and I like to share good biblical stories that we may not all know or remember. Okay? Nice. Maybe later. Thank you. Yeah, I have another one here. Let's look at another one about rebuke. It's about the Maggid of Mezrich. When you see the word Maggid, Maggid literally, does it sound like a word that you know? Magic, it's in English. I'm talking about Hebrew. Haggadah. Can you see that it's the same root or not really? Haggadah is telling. Maggid is a teller, if you want. So some of the Hasidic rabbis were known as Maggid, is the people who preached, people who told stories, gave sermons. So in the Maggid of Mezrich are many stories about him. A disciple once asked the Maggid how to fulfill the mitzvah of rebuke. Well, the Maggid replied, when you rebuke someone, do it with such compassion that they feel you are weeping for their soul, not attacking them. If your words come with love, they will be received. If they come with anger, they will close the heart. Isn't it beautiful? And so true. That's pre-Freud and modern psychology, right? But it's so true. Any comments, examples? Okay. So what does it mean weeping for someone's soul? Who can come up with an example? Not a serious one necessarily, that you have to rebuke. You have to have this difficult conversation with someone, but instead of criticizing them, you let them understand that you feel really bad, like you are feeling even worse than they do. You know what, let me give you.
To me, it's sort of like when you're raising children and they do something you don't agree with, you don't want them to do, whatever. Your first response would be maybe yelling, maybe rebuking, in a sort of not nasty, but a harsh way. And you realize that after a period of time, when you do that over and over and it doesn't give you the result you want, that you have to change that tone. And I think when you start changing that tone to maybe a little bit more softer, compassion, empathy, or maybe even allowing them to think about it and realize what they did wasn't right, and giving them some time to maybe come back to you and go, Mom, I was thinking about that, what you said, and maybe I could do it differently next time. And I think that makes you feel really good when they realize it themselves.
Thank you. But I think that the Maggid, no, keep it there, and the next one who wants to talk. But I want you to focus on the question of what does it mean to, what was the phrase here? Weeping for their soul. So it's more than just being quiet and nice about it and not yelling or not losing, but you want to show them that you feel real sorry for what happened.
So when the kids were little, the preschool that they were at in St. Louis, the teachers always told us to tell the kids when they do something wrong, like, I love you so much that it hurts me to see you, like, bang your head against the wall, or like, I love you too much to let you go hungry. I love you so much that, and of course their response is always like, no, you don't, they didn't fall for it, but like, I love you so much that I can't stand to see you so sad.
It's a beautiful thing, yes, I love you so much. Maybe it wouldn't work for a preschool kid, or maybe being so direct with this, I love you so much, yeah, sure, we know the drill. But to be more sophisticated about it.
Say to your friend, in private or something, I know you really didn't mean it to come out like that, but, I think people took it that you were criticizing this or putting somebody down, and I know you. And you really, are not a bad person, and you wouldn't want them to feel bad about what you just said. Maybe, you could change the language or something like that.
So I know who you really are inside, and you're just not the person who snaps in public or humiliates something. And I say it's not to make you feel bad, but I'm sorry, I know you. That's not who you are. So my soul is weeping because you were probably in such a bad place that caused you to react the way you reacted.
Well, taking that a step further, because I care about you, you are an important person in my life, but you're on a path of self-destruction, I'm telling you, and because I don't want to lose you. And I'll be there to try what I can to help you change that self-destructive path.
Thank you, which is a really difficult conversation with people.
I just think you have to tell people that you understand why they did it.
So first, to show them that you understand. It's not that you accept what they did. It's not that you approve of it, but at least you understand what happened at that moment. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We can continue to the next. Page 2. I don't know if you have the binders from last week, but I decided to have these handouts with with some information that you can keep and even use. So when I was thinking about the relevant Jewish themes that are related to tough conversations, I started with a famous Mishnah that you see on page 2. Every dispute that is for the sake of heaven will in the end endure. Which is a dispute for the sake of heaven? The dispute of Hillel and Shammai. When we think about a dispute, we normally don't think about it as a positive thing, right? Because peace is good, agreement is good, but dispute, disagreement is something we need to solve in order to reach to this wholeness. But the Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says that our disputes, that our arguments, that are holy, they are sacred, that not only that they are not bad, but they are good. They are necessary. And the example that they bring here is Shammai and Hillel. We're talking about some 2,000 years ago. There were two major rabbis. None of them, by the way, used the title rabbi because very few did at that time. One was Hillel and one was Shammai. Okay? Hillel is like the college Hillel, and we like Hillel more than Shammai because there are dozens, if not hundreds, of references to these two men. But Hillel almost always was the more lenient. He was the more kind, okay? He tried to understand people while Shammai was strict. This is the law and that's it, okay? How dare you? And we will have examples and they're fascinating. Now, each one of these two men started an academy, a yeshiva, if you will, okay? So Beit Hillel, the house of Hillel, is the academy that started with Hillel and lasted for generations, and the house of Shammai, the same thing, okay? So here the Mishnah tells us that when these academies, that these students were debating, had a dispute, it was a dispute for the sake of heaven. Dispute for the sake of heaven in contrary to what? Sake of winning, right? For them it was not about winning, but it was about God. It was about doing really the right thing, helping their communities. How else? What other opposites can we find to the sake of heaven? I think ego. I can tell you that more than once in my life, I started a dispute and in the middle of this argument, I realized that I was not right. I didn't quit. I'm sorry, it's the time to be honest. I didn't quit because my ego just did not allow me to say, you know what, you're right. Or if I said it, it was in that tone, you know what, you're right. Meaning, of course you are wrong, but I'm just tired of fighting with you, right? But, you know, just to stop, wow, no. I continued to argue because I wanted to win, or my ego needed it. But if you do it for the sake of heaven, you're open to be wrong. You really listen to the other arguments. As somebody, I forgot who said it, said Jews don't what did he say? Jews don't listen, they wait. And he said it in the context is when we have a dispute, we don't really listen to the other person. We wait for a pause so we will be able to attack them back, right? And how many of us, when somebody else is talking to us, instead of really listening, we compose our counter argument? How can you really be convinced or really be open to another opinion? And if all we do is wait for our turn, and instead of fully listening with an open heart and soul, we compose our own side of the dispute. But they tell us that Hillel and Shammai, it was not about ego, it was not about winning, it was not about power, because these two schools were so important. They were really the leaders of the Jewish community, okay? So it was not about who is more powerful, who has more political, social control. They just wanted to do what God wanted them to do. And each one came to it from a different direction and often had different conclusions. Okay, so they're talking about Hillel and Shammai. And in a different place, we learn that almost all the times when there was a dispute, the halacha, the final law, was according to the house of Hillel. Okay? And why is that? They said because when in the house of Hillel, when they discuss something, an issue of Jewish law, especially when it came to the house of Shammai, they always started with the other opinion. So there was a question saying, you know, the people of the house of Shammai think that this is the answer. We think that's the answer. But they always respected them by starting with them. And even when the law was decided according to Beit Hillel, they never erased what Bet Shammai said. They always kept it in the books. Because maybe one day we'll be convinced that we were wrong. And there's a place that says that after the Messiah comes, the laws will reverse and they will be according to the house of Shammai. Okay, because then we will have the spiritual strength for a more strict way of living. But now we're just flawed human beings and the house of Hillel's lenient way fits better. Okay, so their disputes were for the sake of heaven, for the sake of doing what God wants, listening to the other, keeping an open conversation. That was the style of the Talmud for the most part, because the Talmud is huge, it's tremendous, it discusses thousands of disputes. There are very few places when we know who wins, because that was not important. The important was the debate itself, the arguments. Exactly like we do today, right? That's why I cannot watch TV, because it's really not about learning, listening. It's just about who can win, who can be more vile and humiliate the other one. Any comments about it? Or about it? Okay. Next text here. This is from the Torah itself, the book of Leviticus. You shall not hate your kinsman in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin because of him. So first of all, they tell us you cannot hate another person, or at least people of your community. The word in Hebrew is achicha, from the word ach. What is ach? Brother. Okay? Kinsman is a good modern translation. So people who live with you, people who are part of your community, of your nation, you can be super angry with them, but you cannot hate them in your heart. You cannot bring yourself, you should not bring yourself to a place that you really hate them, that you want them dead. And we can ask, how can we do it? But the second part, הוכח תוכיח את עמיתך, you shall surely rebuke your neighbor. You should not hate them. The rebuke should not come from a place of hatred, but it's not that you have an option to rebuke them, to condemn them for doing something wrong. You must. You must. Okay? And not only that the Torah says you must. Look at the last line here and tell me what it means. What happens if you don't? You own the sin. You own it. Okay, so when you see a person about to commit a crime, okay, you know that that person is just not going to do something good, and you ignore it, it's considered like you did it.
So does this only apply to kinsmen?
In this particular, I just spent 2 days studying about, was the Torah really given to the Jewish people or to the world? And the conclusion was that it was given to the world. Because if you believe that you have something so good, would you just keep it to a small group of people, or you want everyone to know? Right? A good example there was Shabbat. Shabbat was really the Sabbath day, the idea of a day of rest that we take so much for granted, did not exist before the Torah. Most of the laws in the Torah can be traced back to Hammurabi, to other, not the Sabbath day, not the idea that everyone, not that only rich people, even animals, deserve a day of rest. Great idea, right? Again, we take it for granted, and today we want 2 days off or 3 days off in Europe, and brand new concept. So one of the lecturers that I listened to said, if you have such a great idea, do you really want to keep it only to yourself, or you want the entire world to switch to 6 days a week work? I mean, right? So yeah, it's an answer from somewhere else. And there was a serious attempt to show that these laws and the wisdom of Judaism were supposed to be universal. But Jews misunderstood it for most of the time. And they wanted just to keep everything to themselves. I think they kept it to themselves because they were afraid. Because they didn't want anyone to think that they tried to convert somebody or something else, because they would be severely punished. But this particular one says, your kinsman. Do you think that you can rebuke somebody else with whom you have no connection? It's possible theoretically, but I think the concern here was for your community.
I did it the other day.
You yelled at the TV?
No, there was a woman walking.
Wait.
I'm not loud enough?
Not for the people at the house.
The other day I was out walking, and there was a woman walking her dog in the preserve area where you're not supposed to walk your dog anyway. And the dog pooped, and she looked away and wasn't going to pick up, and I just kept looking at her as I walked away. And eventually she moved toward the dog and picked up the dog's poop.
Wow.
And so I did do that, but that's not typical. I mean, we don't necessarily take action like that.
No, that's a great example, because that's something that I believe everyone in this room witnessed, right? We saw somebody who ignored their pooping dog. Oh, thank you, Bruce.
So if she didn't pick up the poop and you watched her and then she just walked away, would it have been your sin to leave the poop?
Well, I did myself.
But the poop is still there, so it becomes your sin.
So what do you think? According to that verse, once you rebuke the person, you cannot be responsible for them forever, right? I think, Bob, you said something in the beginning. You said, I see you, what, going the wrong way, or what was the phrase you used? Self-destruction, right? Yeah, we rebuke them. I see that you're taking this really dangerous path. If we don't say a word, it's our fault. If we say, and they still take this path, what can we do? What can we do? Or at least according to the Torah.
Me?
You have the mic, so you have the power.
So growing up, my mom, we'd come home from school, and if you had an argument with another classmate, and I would say, "Oh, I hate Jan." And my mother's comment, till the day she died, was, "Don't waste your time hating. It's all consuming." My mom died on whatever day, and I don't have a lot of, anyway, I have a sister-in-law that she should stay in New York. But she said something the night that my mom died, and I went after her like white on rice. And I did hate her for 6 months. And why do I say to you 6 months? That's when we did the unveiling, and the hate was all consuming. She was the first thing I thought about in the morning and the last thing I thought about at night, and I didn't like living like that. So I took her out for breakfast.
Thank you, and this will be a great story for those of you who come next week when we talk about forgiveness, because somebody said that forgiveness is the most selfish thing to do, because you do it for yourself. Because as you said, it's so consuming to be full of hate, but by letting go, it's not that you do her a favor. She got breakfast from that, but you help yourself. Yeah.
I think nowadays we have to be a little careful with rebuking, is that how you say it? Because we never know how people are going to react also. It could sometimes be dangerous if, we're at a high pitch of so many things. And it kind of reminds me, and this actually happened years ago, I was in Publix and I had 2 items and I was on, I'm sure this has all happened to us, on the short line, 10 items and under. Big sign, 10 items under. And in front of me is an older gentleman with like 30 items. And behind me is a whole bunch of people with 1 or 2 items. And I thought, Nikki, just don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. But I went, but this isn't right. And everyone, you could hear everyone behind me going, but no one wanted to say anything. So I leaned over and I just said, "Sir, this is an express sign, but maybe you didn't see the sign, He turned around and let loose with such words and hatred. We all in that whole line took a step back. But unbelievable, the cashier, who was a young girl, he comes up and she says, "Sir, I was going to let you go through this line, even though you have way too many items. But because you were so rude and nasty to the woman behind you, I'm sorry, you cannot stay in this line and you have to go to another line." And the whole line clapped.
Wow, I should go to Publix more often. It's maybe that's why it says your kinsmen. And with the emphasis of people they're part of your community, your family, they're not going to take a gun and shoot you or start a whole, I don't know, that's a good, yeah. But I can tell you that at least it happened to me once, not necessarily at Publix, that I didn't pay attention and I went to this 10 items and less and oops. So when I say, but you said the right thing, perhaps you didn't notice. Thank you.
Right over here.
Oh, just coming full circle on, your name's Wyatt, right? Yeah. John. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought someone said Wyatt.
Change your name.
So what John was saying about the dog, I feel, yeah, we've all seen that. I was at the beach, and it's a dog-friendly beach in Jensen where we live, and that happened. And I thought about when someone said, is it our sin, though, if it's something that bothers me? Like, does it bother me that that person doesn't share the same value that I have that you should pick up? Or does it bother me, like, what is it that's bothering me? Does it bother me that there's poop on the beach? Does it bother me that I might step, that someone else, like, maybe it's we don't know always what it is that bothers. Happened on the beach, woman didn't pick it up, I didn't say anything, I picked it up. But it made me think about that, like, is it our responsibility to kind of understand if they're my kinsmen, like, what is it that's bothering me? And because if it's not them, then maybe it doesn't need to be said. I don't know, that just had me thinking, and I was listening to this podcast on the way down, and it was like, our only job in community is to be a light to others and make their life easier. So if that's true, then I can pick up her dog's poop. But I don't know, what do people think about that?
You're getting your steps in today.
I kind of love that. I think one way to do this, rather than glaring at that woman, might have been to say, do you need help picking that up? I'd be happy to go around the fence, find a gate, and walk all the way back over there and pick it up for you if you need the help. And I'd gladly do it. And maybe that's a nicer way to do it than the way that I did it. But anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you. Lori, and then we will continue.
Mine could be more of a question. It could come across, in our lives when things like that happen, and we want to say what we think we should say, but is that not being judgmental, or like how high should this discretion, let's say, be before we, give our comment on it, because that's our opinion, or that's our, our judgment, and who am I to give that judgment? So that's kind of the question.
It's a good point, being judgmental, but in all the cases that people mentioned, it was about somebody who clearly violated the rules, if not the law. So it's not my opinion that you should not have 30 items at the 10 and less line, okay? Or we all know you have a dog, that dog should not poop on the sidewalk without being, so that's not my, if you say, oh, this dog has an ugly sweater, they don't wear sweaters here, but sometimes, that's judgmental, okay? But that's the way I see it. And I know that there is a lot of talk against being judgmental, and people take it really far. So I should not say a word ever. But that's not what the Torah says. It said when it's very clear that the person is violating the rules or the law or about to hurt others or themselves, okay, that's not judgmental. That's your obligation as a member of the society, as a member of the community. It's not something that you, no. And it's hard because you said it can be dangerous. Of course it can be dangerous. We don't really know. It can be dangerous, definitely unpleasant. Let's move to the next one on page 3. Because there is a reason that I chose these topics for the month of Elul, the month before the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I want to I'm becoming more practical now of how to do things. And the first text I want to read, because I think it's at the foundation of the Jewish concept of how to repair things and even how to start new difficult conversations. So Maimonides, this phenomenal Jewish thinker, writer, it's hard to have a text sheet without including Maimonides. So he teaches us how to do tshuva, how to repair, how to repent. And he has 5 steps that I think are important and brilliant. So we're reflecting on ourselves, right? Or we know that there is a problem, and the first step, according to him, is acknowledge the harmful behavior to yourself and cease doing it. And this is really brilliant. This was written 900 years ago. To yourself. First, own up to it. Because so often we do things, yes, but, right? I didn't pick up the poop because my back hurts. Because nobody in the neighborhood really does it. Because poop is actually good to this nature preserve, wherever you... I mean, we're masters in self-deception, right? In rationalizing everything. And Maimonides says, you cannot start the process unless you accept it. You admit it to yourself. Acknowledge the harmful act. And then you can move to number 2. Number 2, articulate what you did wrong to the person you harmed, taking full ownership without making excuses. Okay? I'm sorry that I did it, because so often we say, I'm sorry that I did it, but you did, blah, 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 blah. No, no. Full, emphasis on the word full. I'm sorry that I did it, and articulate what you did. Okay? Not just, I was wrong, I'm sorry for everything I've done. No. I'm sorry for cutting the line, or for, okay? And that's it. I'm sorry that followed by but, I don't think it's a real one and it's ever satisfying. I'm sorry, but no. Okay, that's Maimonides. Number 3, express regret. Genuinely express remorse for the impact your action had on the other person. Okay? So it's not only what I did to you, but how it affected you. Okay? I'm sorry that I said the bad thing, thinking about your sister, about your mother, but I just know you were just mourning your mother and it made coping with her death much harder because of what I said. Okay, so it's not just acknowledging the bad things she said, but also what it did to you. I know how it is.
I did say that to her, actually.
Oh, I
But it
thought
was,
that she said
but
it
it was
to
6 months later. The apology came from it.
No, very often, you said 6 months later. That's not what Maimonides is, but that's something that I learned, and I think it's important. We need to let the offended person time to be offended. Right? If I hurt you now and I just say, oh, I'm sorry, forget about it. No, you have this privilege of being angry with me. We need it as part of the process. We need it. Because when you feel that I did something wrong to you, you feel superior over me because I'm the bad person. You want to feel for at least a short time, I hurt you. Yeah, I'm a better person than he is because I did something wrong. So if immediately I'm going to sorry, forget about it, or no, I don't give you this privilege. At least that's what you have, right? You have something over me. Have some time to enjoy it. And I don't try, I'm not saying it cynically, I really think we need some time to have it. You hurt me, I want to be angry for a while. So 6 months, I don't know how long it takes, but don't just go immediately expect them to move on.
What
They're
if
not
you don't
ready.
know what you did? And
Yeah.
because you know this situation with my brother-in-law for 20 years didn't speak to me, and I got sick, and I said, this has gone on too long, and, it's like kumbaya moment, and everything's good now. But I didn't know for 20 years what it was. No one could tell me.
Did you ask?
Yeah,
And he didn't say.
never heard. I still don't know what it was about.
I think this is the most difficult thing. And we'll talk about it more when we discuss forgiveness. But sometimes we know that somebody is angry with us. We don't know how to ask for their forgiveness because we don't know for what. And and it's not an excuse, we really don't know. Because sometimes I say, oh, I don't know what I did. Oh, I know very well what I did. I just don't want to acknowledge it to myself. I don't want to acknowledge it to you, but I really know. Deep down, I know. But no, there's sometimes you just, a person stop talking to you. And their way to express their anger is the silence treatment and nothing. And that's frustrating, right? And it happens in synagogues because sometimes a person disappears. Just stop coming. We don't know, no idea. People stop being members, stop coming for different reasons, they move, even if they're angry, but at least tell me.
Well, finally, when we made up whatever, and he couldn't remember what it was over. He told me. So, I mean.
And it's not unusual. This kind of, especially within a family feuds start with something sometimes small. It was just the wrong time, the wrong place, we're very vulnerable and hurt because of something else. But in my head, I hate that person. He's a bad guy, he offended me. 20 years later, who knows?
Hold on.
Sorry?
Alva, let me bring the mic up.
How far we're going back to apologize?
What's the time limit? I mean, is there any time limit, or like the past year, the past?
Oh, so the idea here of at least Yom Kippur is that the past year. But if it's 7 years old, you still do it, okay? If there is an open thing, an open wound there, yeah, so you go back 7 years. Slightly different answer, Maimonides says, I don't have it here because the laws of repentance are really long. It's a full book. You do it only 3 times. Okay, you ask forgiveness only 3 times. And if after 3 times the person says, no, I don't want you in my life, I cannot forgive you, what you did to me was too bad, or doesn't say a thing, which is the worst, right? You're good. You're good. You have to move on. Okay? There is something we say every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that for offenses or sins between people and God, God forgives us on Yom Kippur. But for sins between people, when we hurt somebody else, we cannot say, oh, I'm sorry, God, that I hurt John. God said, no, go to John, settle it with John, and then come to me to say, okay, John forgave me, now please God forgive me for what I did to John. Okay, that's the Jewish way. But if after 3 times John just, no. Okay, God is good with me. But it's not that God is good, I should start feeling good. I should release it. I should let go. Because how many times can a person try? Number 4, we are staying with Maimonides. Make amends, apologize, and ask what you can do to make things right. Okay, don't just acknowledge that you know how you hurt them, but okay, what can I do? And the worst thing I think when people say, don't do anything. I think it's a gift when a person says, you know what, I'll walk your dog now 20 times. No, seriously, it's a real gift. Because, okay, I did something wrong and now I have something concrete, something specific, a punishment that fits the crime. That's a gift. When a person just forget about it, it's fine. But I think that if we say, you know what, yeah, you really said something awful to me, do something I don't know, that's a real gift. Because once we do it, we pay the price, the penance, you know, it's much more powerful for, okay, I made a mistake and I really corrected it. So it's a step beyond. Tell me what I can do to make it up to you. Not just acknowledge it. And the fifth thing is commit to not repeating the action. The ultimate test is being in the same situation again and choosing a better path. Okay? So that's how you know that you fulfilled the 5 steps of repentance. I have an opportunity, let's say, to steal again. And it's tempting. I really want to do it. I really want to take something without paying. But I'm not doing it. That's when you know that, okay, you're good. If I never have the opportunity to repeat the offense, what's the big deal? Maybe not. I fix it, but maybe if it happens again, I'll do the same thing. Okay, this is repentance. And according to Maimonides, and these are really beautiful, important 5 steps. And from the 1100s, I want to move to today. So it's hard not to mention Brené Brown because she became the guru of, I don't know, of modern, she's of modern, no, I won't say psychology, but she's a social worker, I believe. But she wrote all these books and her TED Talks are the most popular ones. She's the one who made vulnerability to be a central piece in our behavior. And she says something really good. She said, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Which means avoiding a hard conversation to spare someone's feeling is often about sparing our own discomfort. True kindness requires the courage to be clear. So she says what the Torah says in Leviticus, just in nicer words. The Torah says, if you don't rebuke, it's your sin. She says, you must have the same thing, the difficult conversation, because if you don't do it, it's the unkind thing to do. You don't spare their feelings, you spare your own.
This is another question for you. What if the person is dead? And in retrospect, you know, you realize after a lot of years, or even you kind of, you know, felt it earlier, you think, I wish I could say I'm sorry.
That's why Yizkor of Yom Kippur is my favorite time. It's, I'll talk about it next week when we talk about forgiveness, either asking forgiveness or forgiving others. But I think that one of the huge gifts of Yizkor is our ability to connect with people who died, and sometimes to ask for forgiveness or to forgive them and to repair. I believe you can repair a relationship with people who died. It's not the same. They're not going to say, it's okay. They're not going to hug you back. They're not going to ask you what to do in order to get their forgiveness. But I believe that it's possible to let go of either anger or guilt when it comes to people who are no longer here. And part of the liturgy of the Yizkor helps with that too. Because this is the hardest, right? Because when we go to funerals, the biggest tears come from people who have open issues with the person who died, right? And the best thing that people say in a funeral is, I have no regret. I have no regret. I treated her well, I was there for him, I took care of whatever. But when you have the regret, ugh.
Well, two things, and following up what Bruce said in general, I think sometimes a person needs a Nathan to help them acknowledge that they've done something harmful. So I think that a role for difficult conversations, which by definition are difficult for someone to have with someone else, may be so important to help that person. Ultimately, it's up to the person to listen to what, say, Nathan is saying and then act upon it. And the other thing, maybe that's also a reason where keeping silent and allowing resentment to set in, that's hatred, is a reason when if we can acknowledge this is resentment that we're carrying inside of us, it's hurting us, then maybe if we're feeling that, it's time to at least say something before it keeps eating us up or before it's too late to even say something to that person.
Thank you. I want to go to the nonviolent communication. This is my favorite contemporary tool to have difficult conversations. I wish I would have remembered it each time I do it, but it's something that you should keep and practice. And we'll all have endless opportunities for that. So the first point here is observation. State the facts without judgment. Okay, and I chose an easy example, which I think many of us can relate to. The dishes are in the sink. You cannot argue with that. What would many of you say instead? Why didn't you do the dishes? Even more. Sorry? When are you going to do it? You never. That's my line. When I don't think, or you never put anything in the dishwasher. Okay? The person would not listen to you. First of all, probably not accurate because the never thing, but we love the word never, right? So instead of, the dishes are in the sink. You cannot argue. It's not judgmental. It's not my opinion that the dishes are in the sink. Today we can even take, I don't have my cell phone, a cell phone, and take a picture of our child's room. Look, the new suit that I bought for you is on the floor, all crumbled. You know how much it costs, and you know how much dry cleaning? But just, that's it. Okay, that's a good start. Because once we start, you never do it. I always have to do it after you to do it. The person, or at least people like me, blah, 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 blah. I move on. I just don't have the, okay? But by stating, I hear, oh, well, yeah, it's in the, and yeah, I should have put it in the dishwasher or wash it or whatever it is. Number 2, feeling. State the emotion. Really thing, you know? I feel frustrated because 90% of the dishes I wash, or whenever I cook, I make sure that there are no dishes in the sink. But when you decide to bake your cookies, you know, the kitchen is all dirty. No, it never happened. The very specific thing that about the person I'm talking about my youngest son, is that even when he washes the dishes, actually I prefer for him sometimes not to, especially the big dishes, you know, the mixer and all the things, because the next time you want to use it, it's disgusting. And then No, I really feel frustrated. I feel that it's not fair. There should be you want to bake your stupid cookies, bake the cookies, but don't expect. No.
No prizes.
No, yeah. Okay, but be specific, and seeing the dishes I feel frustrated. I feel that it's not fair. Number 3, need. State the universal human need that isn't being met. Because I need partnership and order. I need the kitchen to be clean. I need to know that there are other people who care about the cleanliness of the house, it's not just my, whatever you say. But, yeah. And request, make a clear, positive, and doable request. Would you be willing to help with that? Okay, but please, just take care of these dishes now. That's not the way I was raised. Okay, that's not but it is effective. And it goes back to Nathan, the prophet. He made David, King David, feel and fully understand what he did. To the degree when David didn't know it was about him, he wanted to kill the man, right? He fully understood. Okay, so state the facts, state the emotion, state the need. Yeah, no, I need to. And then make clear. Any comments about it? Any story that illustrates using that method, or just not using the method and not getting any good results? Bruce, can you please hand over the mic to Deb?
So this reminds me of a story. When my daughter was in 2nd grade, the teacher said to me, it takes 2 people to have an argument. You can't argue with yourself. So what that brought back is people have different values. So I agree with the dishes. Now, my kids think that dirty dishes are normal, and their value system is completely different than mine. So do I judge them, or do I just accept it? So how do you solve conflicts when the values are very different between different people?
This is a big question. Just to answer your specific question, it's my house, I'm the adult. No, not just because I have more power and I can take your phone away if you don't do that. But, we agree that in this house, there are no dishes in the sink. And this is value, or that's the way we handle the house. Now, some people may put dishes in the sink and then keep them there for a full week. But that's not the way we do it in our house. And I think I've never went to college in the US, so I didn't have any roommates or anything like that. But I went to help my son to move from his dorms to an apartment, and his 3 roommates disappeared. They each cleaned their room. It's 4 bedrooms and then a lot of common space, kitchen, and that's where he lived. And they all cleaned their rooms and disappeared.
You didn't know if the last one out gets cleaned?
I did not know the rules, and I spent a lot of time and a lot of physical work. Now, in a way, and in the elevator going up and down with tons of packages, I heard a lot of the parents saying, I cannot believe my son. But in a way, I felt quite good that my son was the one who was left with the crap, because I don't want him to be one of the people who ran away before. So, because, I said, wow, he actually learned. This is the values that we tried to instill in him. So, it's not easy necessarily, But, you know, if I heard that my son was the one who just left a refrigerator full of spoiled food, no, it was really disgusting. And the whole thing, who does such a thing? Apparently, 3 people do such a thing. Okay.
Yeah, I think to your point, if you have such different values than someone, I find that hard sometimes to open that conversation up. But when I read number 1 on the second page, and it says like, to make an argument wholly, the goal has to be mutual search for truth and understanding. And so I think sometimes like I just need the 6 months to care enough to try to actually want to understand. Because sometimes I'm just like, how could you possibly think like that in my head? And so I get that, like if the values are so different for me, but I don't know how Judaism feels about that, I guess I try to wait until I care enough to search for the understanding.
Why do you wait? Because you need more time to feel?
Because if I were to act now, like I cared, but I didn't, right? Like I'm so angry. I'm so angry, like how could they do that? So I have to wait, I think, until I'm less angry and I genuinely want to make it holy by trying to understand.
So I think that's why really the phone is a good example, because something that I did, you take a picture, and then when you feel that the time is right, because normally when I'm really angry, the time is not right. Because I won't do the right thing. I'm not going to remember these 4 steps. I'm going to be the person I don't like. And then I know it's not effective. So these pictures, this little thing, yes, and then, okay, now we all see. Or when he comes back from school, you know, after a long day, and I start, he's not going to listen, you know? Oh,
Yeah, Rabbi, why does it have to be a universal truth? People have raised different values. Why can't it be my personal need? In other words, I'm frustrated because I need the following. and
that's the
issue.
definition of relationship, or
Yeah.
to use a bigger Jewish word, it's the covenant, right? Every relationship is basically covenant. And we are in it together because we agreed to the terms of the covenant. And having a clean kitchen is part of it, right? Because that's a kind of a house that we are having. And when you break it, it doesn't have to be you break the law. No, there's no law that says you cannot keep dishes in the... But in our covenant, that's one of the articles there that you violated, and then I feel frustrated and unappreciated, etc.
I understand what you're saying about different value systems, so now I'm questioning myself, because having 2 sons and growing up, I didn't ask them what their value systems, it was they lived in the house, and I felt that they should have a part of keeping it reasonably clean and some expectation, but I also thought maybe this was good training for your future, that when you had your home and a wife and a family, or even living with roommates, that you would do the right thing and help, you know, I'm not saying a clean kitchen is the be-all and the end-all of everything, but most of us do like that. And I know I raised my sons, this is the way it is. I don't expect to see your dirty dishes in the sink. You live here, it's your dishes, wash them or put them in the dishwasher. But the funny thing is, I guess I did it okay, because when my younger went to college and lived with 4 roommates in a house and called me up one day, oh my God, they're pigs. They're pigs. I cannot stand it. I have to clean the counter. I have to take out the garbage. I fell on the floor laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. I went, gee, why do you think it bothers you? Why do you think you care? And they said, because I was raised in a clean house and that's what we did. So I felt kind of good about that.
Thank you. And that's for a different discussion, but sometimes we have to articulate what you call the values. Because we assume that our children in that case just get it by osmosis, just they live and they assume. But I can tell you the children easily can think, oh, mom will do it. That's her job to... I grew up in a house that, yeah, it was more or less my mom's job to do the dishes. It was not my job, definitely not my father's job. Okay, so that was, if you want, the values or the understanding. Okay, so that was, that's who does dishes. But to articulate the values or the expectations, so I think that it's a good place to end. I would encourage you to look back at page. I included two other stories here that are really good. You know what? Maybe one of them we'll do next week when we talk about forgiveness, because it fits perfectly there. But look at at Maimonides, and when you look at it, just have some examples in your head, and then at the nonviolent communication, which is a very helpful and useful tool. Thank you very much. And next Wednesday, don't come Thursday, but next Wednesday, we will continue with forgiveness just before Slichot. Okay? Thank you.